Hi, writers. It's Megan Barnhard of Write with Megan, and today I'm going to be talking about what to do when you get those voices in your head that say your writing isn't good enough or you aren't good enough. This is a tough topic, but a really important one. So let's dive in. Let's talk about how to battle your writing doubts and fears and what to do when they come up. So if you are watching live or watching the recording, please say hello. Let me know how you're doing today and what you're working on writing. And I want to just kind of invite you to take a breath and release whatever feelings might come up when maybe you're in a place where you're already feeling like, oh man, I'm not good enough. Or maybe just this topic and this conversation makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And that's totally okay. Um, but I invite you take an opportunity to just take a breath. Start by giving yourself a moment here to just acknowledge, like, oh, yep, there's some stuff that comes up for me here. Sorry, I'm getting us shared in the Write with Megan Facebook group. But just acknowledge that, there's feelings that come up, or yeah, it's totally normal. It's fine. And we love you. So if you need some extra love, come on over and join us in the Write with Megan Facebook group. Just go ahead and go to groups and do a search for Write with Megan. This is a place for writers at all points in their journey, people working on business writing, people working on novels, and everything in between. Okay. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay if you have these doubts. It's okay if you have these fears. Hey, Ingrid. Hey, Serial. Hey, Dave. Good to see you guys here. Yeah, isn't this cool? I just got this new background. I'm super excited. All right, so I'm going to be talking about some practical strategies for battling these writing doubts. And the first one is to know when you're experiencing them. So I'm doing this topic because several people, when they came into the Write with Megan Facebook group, answered the questions I ask about what's your biggest writing challenge by saying, I doubt myself, I don't have confidence, I don't think my writing is good enough, I have a lot written, but I don't want to put it out there because I just don't have faith that it's good. So if you've ever experienced that feeling, just know that you're in good company. Know you're not the only one experiencing that. And so that might be you. You might go, hey, I know I've got doubts. I know I don't have a lot of confidence. But that might not be you. You might go, those thoughts are not going through my head. I don't have those writing gremlins. But I wonder if you come up against a lot of writer's block or procrastination, because here's a secret. Writer's block and procrastination are not always, but they can be actually symptoms of writing anxiety. When there are tasks that we don't feel up to, that we don't feel confident about, maybe even just that we're not sure how to do, often we find ourselves facing procrastination, which is totally rational because our brain's like, well, I don't know how to do that. So put that last. No, keep moving it down to the bottom of the list. No, further down, like clean the cat box first, then work on writing. It makes perfect sense if we don't know how to do a task. Of course, we're not eager to go out and tackle it, especially if we're worried that we're going to get it wrong. So if you just had an aha moment, if you're like, oh, my procrastination might actually be a little bit of anxiety about writing, go grab a free resource from my website. It's called 7 Strategies to Beat Writer's Block and Start Writing Right Now. It used to be called 7 Strategies to Calm Writing Anxiety, and I realized a lot of writers don't realize they're suffering from writing anxiety. They see it as procrastination or writer's block. So go on over to meganbarnhard.com and you'll find a place to download that resource for free, and it's just practical tips for getting past that block. Carmen says, I'm procrastinating right now. I feel you. I've had a tough week in terms of focus this week, and I've really been procrastinating up a storm. So I feel you on that. Serial says, I have anxiety and it definitely manifests itself in my writing. Yeah, I hear you. It's something that's very frustrating if you want to be a writer, if you want to create and share your creativity with other people. So that was my first tip, was know that your anxiety might be showing up in a different form, and go ahead and download that strategy, 7 strategies to, or that workbook, 7 strategies to beat writer's block and start writing right now at meganbarnhard.com. Okay, now let's move on to the second tip. And this starts with, yes, I will put a link, absolutely. The second tip starts with just acknowledging a truth about fear, anxiety, imposter syndrome, if you've heard that term before. And the truth and the reality about it is that it doesn't go away because well, it doesn't go away on its own, and it usually doesn't go away because of something we change in our thinking. I mean, it definitely helps to work on your mindset. It definitely helps to get into a calmer state. But your confidence about your writing is going to come through writing. There isn't a shortcut for this. The more you write and the more you gain skill, the more you will actually increase your confidence and show yourself that you can do it. And it doesn't happen in a straight line. You might start off not feeling confident and then gain in skill, and then some days you go, oh no, I'm worse now than I was when I first started. Things ebb and flow. There's also this, I can't think of the name of it. It's a great graph that shows us that sometimes as we're learning about something new, we lose even more confidence. So what happens is when we don't know about a topic, we start out with what's called uninformed optimism. Okay, this is the feeling I get when I'm like, yes, I'm going to totally KonMari my whole house. Like, I'm going to use Marie Kondo strategies and I'm going to clean and declutter everything, right? And I start with this uninformed optimism that's like, I could totally do it. I got this, right? Then I get into a little bit and I start becoming informed and start realizing what's involved, and I go into what's called informed pessimism. Oh my gosh, what did I do? I'll never finish putting these things back where they go. My house is a mess, okay? Or in your writing, maybe that sounds like, oh, this is so complicated. I didn't know I had to worry about plot and character and description and narrative point of view and what's a run-on sentence again? And all of these things come up and we start to doubt our ability, okay? But then as we learn the skills, we increase our faith and our confidence in ourselves again until we're in a place of informed optimism, where now we're like, oh, I can do this because I have a plan. Okay. So as we're learning a new skill or as we're trying something that's newer to us, we're going to go through those roller coasters, and it's going to happen not just once. It's going to happen usually many times, where when you get into a new area of knowledge, you're like, oh crap, that's something I didn't know and now I'll never be able to do it. Okay. So just knowing that those roller coasters are going to come along can be super helpful, because then you're like, oh, I just got to informed pessimism. All right. It's like you know to expect it, so when you get there that it's a place, a temporary place that you've come to, and it's not going to last forever. So I'd love to hear from you. Anybody, give me an emoji or give me a comment. Have you ever experienced that moment where you went from uninformed optimism to informed pessimism? Leave me a comment. Tell me what it was regarding. You heard my example that happened to me trying to clean out my house and my closets based on the Marie Kondo book. So I'd love to hear where have you gone through that experience? And can you now look back and recognize something where you went, oh, at the time I thought I just sucked, but now I realized that I was going from not knowing what was involved and so being really optimistic to seeing what was involved and then feeling overwhelmed. Okay. Okay. Serial is saying, most people always say that due to being self-taught in English, I shouldn't be writing in English. That definitely took my confidence away because I started out with confidence and then just lost it with those sorts of comments. I would be extremely bummed if somebody were saying that to me. And the judgments of other people are they can be a huge factor in how we feel in terms of confidence and in terms of how we the energy we have for going forward. And so Serial, I would say what's really important to do is make sure you surround yourself with some yay sayers. Right now you've definitely got some naysayers, sounds like, See what you can do to mitigate their effect on you. I don't know who these people are in your life. Maybe they're people you're really close with, and so it doesn't feel like an option to, just close out the relationship. Try to protect yourself from those kind of negative comments when you can, and find people in your life who will support your writing. So find people who will give you that positive support that you need. It's very challenging to do something like writing, which involves a lot of craft, a lot of skill, and artistic expression in an environment of negativity. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's extra challenging. So surround yourself with that love. And yeah, find find what will help be more motivating. Oh, Wayne says grammar Nazis can really bring you down. Absolutely. People who are focusing on small, details of your writing when you're like, hey, I'm trying to grow my craft, isn't helpful. Rebecca's raising her hand. Thanks. Oh, yeah, I'm glad it makes sense, Mimi. Okay. Carmen says, planning and outlining my novel. I thought I'd hate it, but once I found a way that works for me, I don't mind it anymore. Yay, Carmen. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. I love when people find their planning and outlining style. And yeah, I mean, I bet a really common place where people fall off the cliff. Like here they are standing up at, uninformed optimism. They're like, I'm gonna write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. This is gonna be so much fun. And then like you start looking up on YouTube all the different ways to outline, and before you know it, you're down in that slump. Like, oh my gosh, how will I ever learn all this? Which brings me actually to the next tip. So that tip was kind of long, but that tip was knowing that the only way to get better at it is to do it. So how do you do it? Well, find resources and systems that work. A lot of creative people confuse the process of creativity with the product of creativity, and your product is going to be unique, right? What you create, what you write will be different from what anybody else creates and writes. But it doesn't mean the process you use has to be different. It can. It absolutely, if you find a unique writing process, more power to you. But there are so many resources available. For example, like I want to learn about story structure. How do I craft a good story? Where does it start, and how do I create a climactic moment, and how should it end? There are so many resources about that. So you don't have to worry about creating something unique and special, and you don't have to reinvent storytelling and story structure. You can use what already exists. And this is a place where it's kind of tricky, because I want you to go and investigate and find the resources that work for you, but I want you to also guard yourself against information overload, analysis paralysis, they call it, that feeling of so many inputs of information that you aren't sure what steps to take next. So what I really advise is explore, experiment, explore, experiment. So what that means is finding resources. Maybe these are resources that other people recommend to you. Maybe you've got some writing buddies. They go, hey, you got to check out this YouTube channel. It's really cool. I learned a lot. Or, try this book or try this blog. Okay, so get some recommendations, start somewhere, consume a little bit, and try it and see if it works for you. Okay, then you're like, yep, it does. I want to, bookmark this, add it to my writing toolbox. No, it doesn't. Chuck it. Let me move on to something else. That is going to help you keep moving forward through the process of building your confidence by trying things, right? And it will also stave off the overwhelm of, I have to learn all of this stuff before I can move forward. So do a little bit at a time. And oh, here's something that's, I want to get into the fourth point, but let me look at some comments. To let the grammar police get you down. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Carmen, your light bulb moment came from reading Recipe for Outline. You just super extra made my day. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad. Wayne says YouTube has helped so much. Yeah, if you're not going and exploring writing tips on YouTube, go do that. Hey, Wayne, I invite you, if there's a particular channel you follow, go ahead and put it in the comments, because there's a lot on YouTube. So if there's somebody you've gotten some particularly good advice for, go ahead and share that. Ooh, Dave says buy an experiment notebook and fill it up with all sorts of stuff. Allow yourself to write terrible stuff in your experiment notebook. Now that's a different kind of experimenting than I was talking about. I was talking about experimenting with methods, but I love that. A place to write where you know your goal is practicing the craft is huge. You guys have heard me say before that I am a really big fan of 750 words. This is a website that was created for the purpose of people being able to do their morning pages, which I believe comes from the Artist's Way. I may be wrong about that. But it's morning pages is a way to simply write and get out what's on your brain. This does so many wonderful things. It clears the pipes, so it gets all the gunk out so you can get to the treasure that's underneath. It can reduce your anxiety because you have a place to just write out, oh man, I'm so worried about this, and I'm thinking about that, and oh man, I didn't do this. And it gets it out on paper, so it doesn't have to be circling in your head anymore. And it helps you tap into your unconscious writing or your subconscious writing mind, where there are often some really amazing ideas lurking that you were not aware of. But that's, a kind of free writing, experimenting like Dave is talking about, where your expectation is not that you're writing something really wonderful. Your expectation is that you are just writing. And here's something cool about being a writer. There's no wasted writing. Everything you write is actually building your craft. Has anybody read the Malcolm Gladwell book? Oh goodness, is it Outliers, where he talks about, becoming an expert at something basically takes around 10,000 hours. And he tells you about the Beatles being in Germany and playing these seedy nightclubs that, where nobody's listening to the music, but they were getting in their 10,000 hours. So their product, the shows they were playing at that time were not the point. The point was they were practicing. And when you're a writer, all the time you're putting in is going somewhere. The writing you don't use is not wasted writing because you spent the time, working on your craft. So try exercises, try activities, do a challenge with yourself. Like, oh, I'm just going to write a scene of dialogue because that's something I struggle with. And it's not because it's part of a book I'm writing. I'm going to practice. Think about taking piano lessons or any kind of lessons with a musical instrument, and you have to play scales. It's not because scales are beautiful. It's not because people will sit back like, oh yes, the scale in C major. Oh yes, that's my favorite piece. It's because musicians need to put in their hours training and drilling, okay? So that can be a really wonderful way to reframe. Like if you have a day and you're writing and you go, I don't like any of this, it's awful. Go, oh, this is my experiment. This is my time toward my 10,000 hours. Okay. Oh, Wayne is saying the person I like is not PG with her words. Okay, I'm fine with that, and as long as you just put a warning like, hey, not safe for work or children, then I think that's fine. People can decide if they want to click on that YouTube channel or not. Rebecca, thank you so much for bringing up this point. Rebecca said, I learned that when I first started writing. Every time I read a book about plot or point of view or anything technical, I would compare my work and it would undermine my confidence. I have since learned to learn in little sips and apply and analyze before learning more. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, there's this fabulous quote from Ira Glass, the host of This American Life, where he talks about the gap that exists between our taste in things and our skill level at things, right? So again, let's go back to that musician example. You became a musician because you love Led Zeppelin, and you're like, oh, I want to play the guitar like that. And then you go and you're playing, you're like, burr, 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 right? And your skill level is so far removed from your appreciation level. Like, what really great guitar playing sounds like. And that gap is what causes a lot of artists and a lot of people to stop and to give up. Because I didn't want to produce down here, I want to produce up here. But the only way to produce up here is to keep putting in that time and, getting in your 10,000 hours. So I love that, Rebecca, you've managed to change your approach so that you're not inundating yourself with too much learning. Too much information is not helpful. Okay. Too much information is like a fire hydrant when you're thirsty, right? If you're thirsty, it's like, I can't. I can't do anything with all of that that's coming my way, right? You need a water fountain a little bit at a time. Um, hey, Stephanie, good to see you. I know, I got this on clearance. I'm digging it. Okay, so I want to move into um, the the final tip, okay, about getting more confidence in your writing. And that is to have some kind of objective standard. Now, this is a double-edged sword, so I want to be really careful about describing it. Okay, what I mean by an objective standard is to have something outside of your own mind that tells you whether your writing has in it what it needs. Now, we just got done talking about this gap between where, our skill level of producing and the where we want to be, okay? So don't use this to beat yourself up. Don't use this to be really mean about your own writing. But there's a really important question here, which is, well, how can I make my writing better if I don't know what good writing should have in it? Okay. So have a sense of what it means for dialogue to be good, for your plot structure to be good, for characters to be good. And those are the kinds of resources that you can go look up, because that is going to do a lot to shush the gremlins, the writing gremlins, who no matter what like to say it's not good enough and you'll never be a writer. And who knows, maybe that's not even your voice. Maybe that's the voice of one of those grammar Nazis, it's like occupying space in your brain. But if you can shush it up by saying, actually, I read this book about how to make sure I have a complete scene, and I did everything on this checklist, so, screw you, see you later. That's going to be really powerful. So let me know, does that make sense? You want to use an outside objective standard to help shush the gremlins, not to beat yourself up if you don't have everything at first. So this is a place where you need to know yourself and know, where is that doubt coming from? Is that doubt more about overwhelm and feeling like, oh, I have to do everything? If that's the case, you really want to do what Rebecca did, which is to slow the input, to limit the input. But if your doubt is coming from internal gremlins, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough, my family always said that being a writer is dumb, and whatever it is, wherever these beliefs and these voices have come from, you can do a lot to shush them by going, oh no, actually, I have this checklist and I did all of these things. I just released a revising course, and one of the reasons that I'm really excited about it, and one of the reasons it's different from anything I've ever seen, is because it gives you those kinds of checklists. It's like, what would a good climax include? Haha. Cracking myself up here. But there's a checklist, it's like, oh, okay, did I do that? Yes, no, okay, you need to go back and change that. Did I do this? Did I do this? And you go through in a systematic way and ask, am I hitting all of these points? So if you're interested in learning more about that revising course, I will go ahead and put a link to that as well. So let me circle back and recap, and then I will go through and look for comments. If I miss your comment or question, I apologize. There's a little bit of a lag, but I always come back through after the live broadcast and look for questions I may have missed. So the very first thing is to just know when you're feeling writing anxiety, because it might be the case that your anxiety shows up as writer's block or procrastination. And you just want to interrupt that anxious thought pattern. Great way to do that is with the resources in the 7 strategies to beat writer's block, which is a free download over on my website right there. Okay. Then you want to just be really honest and aware of the fact that the only way to get better is by doing it, and that your confidence is going to increase with the amount of time you put in, and that it's okay. We all have that gap between what we know and can appreciate as good and what we can produce. And the only way to close that gap is to just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. If you have that gap, it doesn't mean you weren't destined to be a writer. It just means you're a human being and you can't, magically do the thing. You have to practice in order to get there. Then we talked about using systems that work and collecting the resources that are already out there, but just being careful to limit so you don't overwhelm yourself and feel like you have to do it all at once. We talked about the roller coaster starting at uninformed optimism and getting into that slump of informed pessimism, but then it always comes back up and it repeats. So it's okay, just be aware of it. You can celebrate it when you get into that slump. You're like, oh, I just arrived at informed pessimism. Okay, awesome. Now it's only up from here. And then the final thing is to use objective standards so that you can quiet those writing gremlins and say, no, it is good. I can show you why it's good. It has all of these elements. So yes, there's no wand waving to get you where you want to be in writing. Oh, Ingrid, awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying the revising course. Okay, so let me look for more comments. Wayne says, writing buddies can help you get going. We challenge each other and kind of give feedback. Yeah, writing buddies are the best. I highly recommend you find some. These might be people you meet in real life. They might be friends over the magical interwebs. Okay, awesome. So if you have more questions, thoughts, comments about this topic, please do go ahead and leave them here. And oh, Ingrid says, I'm intrigued about using YouTube or TED Talks for adding enthusiasm. Yeah, I love watching TED Talks about creativity and, learning more about this process. It definitely pays as well to watch things that show you how much work you're really doing when you're writing. And not an intimidating way. Like, don't go hunt down things where people are like, oh, it's so hard and you're gonna have to do all these things. But watching people talk about creativity and the creative process and writing, you're like, oh, holy crap, I'm actually doing a ton when I'm sitting down to write a character or write a scene or write a blog post. So, it's okay if it's hard. And I'll just close by saying thank you to everybody who was brave enough to ask this question or to say, hey, I'm not feeling confident. If writing is what you want to be doing, don't give up on yourself, because you can absolutely learn all of the skill and the craft and the technique, and you'll just keep getting better and better the more you do it. All right, so I will look forward to hearing more questions and comments on this. I'll post the link to the revising course, and in the meantime, I wish you all very happy writing. Take care.